Hello, my office workplace warriors, and welcome back to another episode of Dear HR Diary by Manage with Heart, the unfiltered truth you wish they taught you in management school. This is part two to such a fantastic conversation that Josiah and I were having earlier in my previous podcast. And if you haven't had an opportunity, you missed out on some great Taylor Swift references, if you will. We're living our management eras right here, Josiah and I. Josiah is the founder of 45 Degrees Leadership Development Consulting. He brings all kinds of experience when it comes to visionary leadership, success with executives, as well as actionable lessons that he provides. And we've been spending a lot of time talking about that. Our last podcast, we wrapped up with feedback and kind of the importance and the joke that feedback is the gift that doesn't always come in one size fits all. And we talked briefly on the importance of feedback and understanding the validity of it, and just, is this true? Is this something that is actionable? How do I apply this? So I wanted to continue down this path of what Josiah brings, not only just when it comes to feedback, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to kind of making the shift and how managers manage or leaders lead. I think that I just kind of laughed. That was a little play on words there, if you will. So welcome back to the show, Josiah. We're glad to have you back on Dear HR Diary.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to continue this robust discussion, Dawn.
This has been fun. This has been great. You started, and we talked about it briefly in the last podcast, but you started 45 Degrees of Leadership. What prompted that? Where did the name come from? Give us a little background on that.
Yeah, so it's personal. I live in Wisconsin. I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin, and Lake
You
Michigan.
mean that is not a Texas accent?
Not at all. Not at all. I know it might sound southern, but no. No, so southeastern Wisconsin, we're blessed with Lake Michigan. And I grew up in Milwaukee, moved to Sheboygan County. I currently live in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is famous from the Home Alone. John, the polka band in the back say, you're big in Chicago? No, Sheboygan. And so they were on their way up here for a polka concert. But Sheboygan is known as the Malibu of the Midwest. And we have incredible beach. And in the summertime, in the wintertime, it's not like Malibu at all. But people actually surf here. And there on my LinkedIn, there was some pictures of people surfing. They call it the third coast because you can actually surf in Lake Michigan. But you can really only surf when it's cold. So they're in full wetsuits. But the lake has always been a part of my life. And I raced on sailboats all over Lake Michigan. And when you're on a sailboat, you set your heading, which is the direction that you're going to. And so on a compass, 45 degrees is northeast. And when you look at a graph as a business, you want your graph to go up and to the right, which is northeast, which is 45 degrees. So the idea is if you invest in your people and get the personal growth going in the right direction, up and to the right, northeast, your organization goals are going to also go up and to the right and head straight at 45 degrees. And so the name is based on sailing on the water on Lake Michigan, and then a fun play on it and tying it into personal growth and organizational growth.
I've got it. I like it. I actually like it. When you said Northeast, I immediately thought of like the Northeast. My sister lives in New Hampshire, and I'm like, the Northeast, huh? She calls it God country up there. I call it freezing cold, but I'm also in a flyover state. God love Oklahoma. So we don't have any really great lakes here, that's for sure. I can't say that. I mean, we do have some really great lakes, but you can't surf on them, and I mean, they're not the beach, and they're definitely not Malibu, that's for sure. But we digress. It's always fun. We're always interesting to learn about people's backgrounds, to learn about where their companies, where they get their names. As I started this podcast, it's been really kind of intriguing to talk to different people throughout the country, and I even talked to some people in Australia and in the UK. So some of those podcasts are international, if you will, and internationally known. But obviously, leadership is one of those things that is global. I mean, this isn't just a problem or a situation or something that happens in the United States or even just, tiny little towns of Oklahoma City. This happens throughout the world. This leadership, managers, it happens globally. So you're not isolated. You don't live in a little tiny pod and you're the only person that's dealing with this. You made mention to something that I really thought was interesting, and you said that, leadership's at a crisis point. What do you mean by that?
Well, so when I worked in education, I was in coaching. I saw it all the time in our youth. And you look at kids not wanting to get their driver's license at the age of 16. That was the first sign of freedom when I was growing up.
Ooh.
That was your independence, right? That was your personal leadership. And get out and spread your wings and see how it goes. And sometimes it was good and sometimes it was bad, right? But kids don't want to get their driver's license. Kids are not rushing off to college after they graduate high school. They're taking a gap year and staying at
Mm-hmm.
home. And then in coaching, you get a team where kids, you don't get one kid that wants to play quarterback. You get kids that do not want to be the point guard in basketball. They don't want the ball in their hands. They don't want the decision making. They don't want the leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
that's in our youth. And then I'm hearing it more and more with my friends saying, you know, I want to show up to work, do my job, and go home. I don't want to take the stress home with me. I don't want to take the politics home with me. I've been a people leader, never again. I'm done. And you also look at the labor market and where we're at just with that. And it is in an insane and exciting time at the exact same moment. And labor started physical as a farming society, agrarian society. What you could do physically is how you brought value to the labor market. And then it
Mm-hmm.
shifted to the mind. So it went from the body to the mind. And you started to see automation, assembly lines, and then that turbocharged with the internet and the dot-com bubble. And it really shifted from the body to the mind. And now with the rapid pace of generative AI and artificial intelligence, you're starting to see some of the kind of base level repetitive skills can be automated, can be replaced. And so what that's done is it's really shifted, the from in the labor market from the body way back when to the mind and now to the heart. And
Mm-hmm.
humans are craving human connection more than ever. We're more connected, but we're least connected at this time. And it's real authentic, genuine connection is what people are craving. And you don't get that, the connect. Yeah, we're more connected on social media. It's not real. Like, I hate to break it to you, Dawn, but I can say this because mine isn't real. But my Facebook feed is not my life. Like, it's what I want you to know about my life, but it's not my life. And so when you see this jaded view of somebody's reality, you're wanting more actual connection. You want to know
Mm-hmm.
more about what's going on, and you don't always get it because it's like these highlight reels of life that people are broadcasting and amplifying on social media. And so the need for leadership now is to connect the head to the heart and to travel the journey, the 16-inch journey from your head to your heart often, because you need it, your people need it, and your people are the key to getting your results. And what I do with development of leadership and working on people and driving results, the P&L we touched on in the last episode, it's real. Like, that's the baseline. It's got to look good, otherwise you're going to have issues. But everything on that P&L doesn't come down to profit and loss. It comes down to people and learning.
Oh,
And and if you level up your people and you level up the learning, the profit and loss of the P&L is going to look a whole lot better. And that's what I'm here to help organizations do, Dawn, is to connect the head of the heart, to drive people, to produce results while protecting the dignity of everybody involved.
oh my gosh. I love that. People and learning. Now, I'm married to a banker, so he's going to have a hard time getting through. No, I'm just kidding. With a last name like Hart, he very much leads with his heart as well.
No,
So,
Dawn, and I can say that talking to an HR person. If I'm in a room with a finance person or an operations person, probably not using that line, Dawn. It doesn't land the same way, just being honest.
Okay, I had to laugh. So like tonight when I have a conversation with him, I'm gonna be like, okay, so I learned what P&L stands for. It stands for people and learning. He's gonna be like, what? Yeah, we HR people take things a little bit differently, that's for sure. Well, and I think you have said something that's kind of really rung my little brain and not wrapping my little brain around it. Is I've been in business for a while. I've been in HR for a really, really long period of time. And I and myself have seen this huge dynamic shift from where people would come in and they'd be these widget makers and they do their job and they would go home. And you didn't know anything about them. There was really no true connection to where this generation in the workplace now is demanding this connection. They're expecting this connection. And anybody that's listened to my podcast, I have a couple of podcasts with Katie Howard where we talk about generations in the workplace and the demand that Gen Z and later millennials, not the older millennials, are placing on the expectations of connections being made and how it impacts their mental health has been crazy. And yet you still have these leaders, and I'm a Gen Xer, you still have some baby boomers in power that were raised that you don't talk about this. It's very much you come in, you expect them to do their work, you keep your nose to the grindstone, do the job, and then go home. And then we're amazed at the lack of loyalty that people have to an organization. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're laughing at me because you know exactly what I'm saying. So it's just been kind of a really interesting shift. I can only imagine what you're seeing in working with executives and leaders when they're like, you mean I have to like be nice to these people? I have to learn about their dog. I have to care that their grandma is on vacation in the Bahamas. So, how do you kind of help leaders understand the importance of making that connection from their head to 16 inches? I'm like mentally measuring my brain to my heart. How do you help them make that understand the importance, or how do you help them actually make that connection, if you will?
So that's really, really interesting. And there was a story of a Gen Z employee and a Gen X manager, and the discussion of meaning at work. And the younger employee was saying, I just don't have meaning at work. I don't have connection. And the supervisor from Gen Z says, you got paid, didn't you? Like, what more meaning do you want from your job? And what do you think happened, right?
Yeah,
That relationship was over the
yeah.
instantly, right? And oh, that they're soft. They don't have loyalty like they used to.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
and so what I tell people, and I was working with a manufacturing company with very how do I say it? Traditional, maybe old school, maybe antiquated, maybe need to move on type values of people are soft. This generation doesn't want to work and blah blah blah. And I said, look, here's the deal. Like, I may or may not agree with that, but this is what matters. Are you responsible for the results of your company? Well, yes, I am. I'm the president of it. Okay. Well, I'll give you two options. One, you can wait for everybody else in society, and knowing that 27% of the workforce by the early part of this year is going to be made up of Gen Z. By next year, the numbers are insane as far as
Hmm.
what Gen Z is doing and baby boomers leaving at the same time. And so we're in a massive shift to the younger generation with the older generation retiring. And so I said, so this is your choice. You can sit and wait for everybody coming into the labor market and everybody in Gen Z and everybody in the younger millennials to change. And we'll just wait. And you do not change. You are spot on. They are soft. They don't have a work ethic. They're not loyal. You are absolutely right. But let's wait it out then. What's going to happen to your business?
Uh, it's gonna tank.
You won't have employees.
You're Yeah, you're not going to have any employees to do the job, to have the business, and then your business is not going to be a business anymore. It's going to be a relic, just like
Correct.
your management practices.
Correct. And so then what I said, so then he said, well, boy, what's the other option? And I said, well, the other option is that you can take a look at a book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership, and you can accept the fact that as a leader, you are responsible and you own everything, the good, the bad, It's all on you. And that's the risk and responsibility you took to become a leader at the level that you're at. And you own yourself and you change yourself. And if you can start to embrace this, and yeah, maybe they are soft, maybe they are not loyal, maybe it's all different and society's doomed. Maybe that's right. But in the meantime, you got a business, you got results you got to deliver. And if you own the fact that you're going to change, what's going to happen first? Are you going to change first, or are you going to wait for everybody else to change and they're going to change first? Like, where is the action going to happen? Where is the difference going to come from? And
Mm-hmm.
and the person was like, it's clear, I gotta change, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. Like, and I'm not saying morally, ethically contradicting your values wrong, right? Like, I'm
Right.
just gotta go out and, fudge financial documents. Like, all I'm telling them is you have to examine what you're doing as your behaviors as a leader and how you're showing up, how you're engaging and inspiring your people. Because without your people, there's no way you can get results. It is
Mm-hmm.
too complex in the world right now. It's too volatile. It's too uncertain. And you never know what's coming the next day. It's so ambiguous. And so if you want to go alone, good luck, because it is tough right now to lead. And you need diversity of thought, diversity of skill. You need your team. And so
Mm-hmm.
do you want to engage them? Yes or no? It's up to you what you want to do. And I'll stick around because at the end of the day, I go home, right? Like, these aren't my people problems. So you do you, I'll help, but let me know what's up and I'll help.
And then contact me later when you're selling your office furniture and I can get it at a bargain basement value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For the longest time, I have told my managers, in order to have a successful team, you have to manage to your employees. Your employees don't manage to you. So it's, everyone is different on your team. They all bring their own set of baggage, if you will. Some of it's Louis Vuitton custom made suitcases, and some of it's a trash bag from, underneath their kitchen sink. Either way, they all require something different from you as a manager, and it's not a one size fits all. It's very much like you have to customize your approach to your Louis Vuitton luggage carrying person and your trash bag carrying person, because they're going to be completely different. And they all have this unique set of ideas, values, skill sets, whatever that they're bringing to your organization. If you don't find value in that, and if you don't have conversations and make those connections with those employees, they will find it somewhere else. And as a Gen Xer, I don't want to tell you how many jobs I've had because it has been frequent. Um, but there's always been something that I've looked for when I've gone to other jobs, and it has been, and I work in HR, so HR is a very transferable skill. But it's also like I'm looking for something, and we said this in the last podcast that Kat has just rung in my head over and over. I want to see, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, and I want to feel valued, and ultimately that's why I've left organizations, and you're seeing more and more of that going on. And with the speed of things happening nowadays, that's what I'm seeing, particularly with my millennials and my Gen Zs, or what we talked about in a lot of the last podcast. Um, how, as a manager, can I build that trust where my employees feel like, it's I'm being honest with them? Because I know sometimes, particularly if somebody, let me back up and ask why I'm asking this question. Um, you might have a manager like you were just talking about who has hired you, or maybe has hired me, or has hired somebody to come in and say, I need your help, Josiah. I do not know why my employees don't like me. I don't know why I'm not able to make connections with them. I feel like they don't trust me. And I don't want to come across as just a genuine, when you're like, I want you to put these into place and try this for a while. So, how do I rebuild, or how do I build that with my employees, if it's something that, as I'm listening to this podcast and you're like, that's me, I'm that manager, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. And how do I fix that?
Well, so the leadership model that I created in the 45 degrees leadership model is rooted in all of this. Um, we've talked about positional power and how that doesn't carry the weight that it used to. We've also talked about competence. And you talked about individual contributors getting promoted to managers because they had competence and they could handle tasks and deliver results by executing those tasks. And now they become a manager, but they don't know how to manage people or anything about leadership ability. And so competence still matters. You still have to be able to do the job, but it doesn't matter the way that it used to. And let me tell you what does matter. So the model starts with connection, and that's an awareness of yourself and an awareness of others. And you have to understand what people needs, challenges, objectives are. What are their priorities outside of work? What do they want inside of work? And when you start to understand them and you start to understand yourself, then you have to spend time together. And you need visibility, accessibility. You need to work through some messy stuff together. And when you do that, the connection levels up to chemistry. But you need time together to get to chemistry, to get to a point where I know what they're going to say before I ask them. I know what they're going to do before they do it. And once you have the connection, the chemistry, then people today are open to hear the competence. And so you lead with connection all the time. Like I have to do this with intention because when I answer an email, I want to answer the question. I move incredibly fast. My brain is at an insane rate. And so I respond to the email, hey, do this, this, and this. And then I have to go back to the top and say, hi, Dawn. Hope your Tuesday is great today. What's up with the rain? Are we really doing this again? And then I add that in and then I hit send. And I've had to get intentional in doing that because you have to connect before competence, because today people aren't in a position to hear your competence if there is no or little connection. And all of this is rooted in Maya Angelou. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And when you lead with connection over competence, you're executing that. And that's the leadership model. But then what I've also done is when you look at any of the leadership gurus, Stephen Covey, Patrick Lencioni, all these guys, they'll tell you the number one factor of a high-performing team is what you said, it's trust. And so I've created an equation that produces trust, and that equation is connection plus chemistry plus competence equals trust. And does that sound familiar?
It does.
It's the leadership model. So the leadership model is designed to facilitate, build, and grow trust within your team. And then the way you do that is through our actionable communication framework, which is called the CLEAR framework, that guides you how to execute emotional intelligence in every human interaction.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. This is like tremendously helpful. And we'll leave we're gonna leave Josiah's information in the bottom. Now, you told me that you have this fabulous new digital course coming up. I'm going to assume that this is going to be insightful to people that are listening to the podcast.
Absolutely. So the course is called Leading with Impact, Communicate to Connect, and it introduces the CLEAR framework. It talks about the leadership model, the trust equation, but then specifically how to interact with others. And the CLEAR framework's real simple. It's conscious. Are you in a position to be present to talk to that person? We talked about being seen and heard. So mentally, physically, emotionally present. If it's yes, you continue. If it's not, you schedule time. And then you get into listen, and we talk all about active listening, but then also the value of open-ended questions and why you want to cut out why questions from your leadership and lean heavily into how and why questions, because the dialogue becomes so much more complex, rich, and robust. And then we've all heard listen to understand, not listen to respond. Well, I'm here to tell you that doesn't cut it anymore. We need to listen to empathize. So the E is the empathize. That equips you on what to look for to actually understand the other person that you're communicating with before you even get into the act. So you've engaged the head, the heart, and now you're in the act where it's time to engage the jaw. And we equip you with ways to balance care and candor, to drive results, protect dignity, and match your intent of what you want to get out of that meeting with the impact, which is how the other person feels after that interaction. And then we bring it all home with reflect. And you gotta dedicate and spend time reflecting if you want to improve at anything. It's why in football they watch the game film, basketball they watch film. You probably watch yourself public speak to get better at it. you have to reflect on what you do to grow. And so
Mhm.
that's the model that's introduced in the digital course, and that's going to be released in the next 3 weeks. And so follow me on LinkedIn. You get all kinds of insight, and there'll be more information on the Communicate to Connect digital course.
That's exciting. Yay. And what a great framework. I mean, I definitely like, and you don't necessarily have to be a manager to do this. You can be someone that is interested. And again, you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. And I've said that several times, just in general. But if it's something that you're interested in and just how to make a connection, what a great framework that Josiah's put together for you to take advantage of. Well, as we start wrapping up this fabulous podcast where we spent time talking through, passion and connection and heart and head and everything that comes with it, what's one little nugget that you'd like to leave with my listeners?
The main takeaway I really think is the ability to connect the head to the heart. And what you touched on is people that have gone through these workshops, have gone through coaching. I get feedback that this is going to make me a better father, a better wife, a
Mm.
better husband, a better mom, a better coach of youth sports. And it comes up over and over and over again that this is going to make me better personally and professionally. And what I will tell you, the takeaway is the power of human connection transcends the workplace, the house, the grocery store, wherever you're going, where there's people. If you can connect your head to your heart and how you communicate and how you interact, be kind, make people feel valued, your life is going to get exponentially better, incredibly fast, because you are now able to harness the power of me, you, and everybody else in the world and leverage that to drive results and make the world a better place. And people are going to get inspired, they're going to get engaged, and your life, your career, your professional life is going to turbocharge in a positive direction, up and to the right, 45 degrees.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josiah. I really appreciated today's discussion. I'm glad we had the opportunity to continue it again because, again, some amazing information for anyone that's tuning in, whether you're an employee, a manager, an HR professional, my mom, hi, mom. Um, anybody listening to the podcast out there, what great, tremendous insight Josiah has. And I feel very fortunate to have him on the Dear HR Diary podcast. So we will leave all of his contact information, his LinkedIn, go follow him on LinkedIn, his LinkedIn page. We'll leave information on his website so you can get signed up for his digital course, which go take it. I'm sure he would appreciate the feedback, as would I. So I'd love to hear that. But again, thanks again for tuning into Dear HR Diary, brought to you by Manage with Heart. This is definitely unfiltered truth that I didn't learn in management school. I can guarantee that. Thanks, Josiah. Until then, my office workplace warriors, stay fabulous.